Mike's on mute now.
Welcome, everybody. We are here on another episode of Cryptrix. I've been thinking. Just want to welcome you guys all back once again to join me for another amazing interview, guys. I'm telling you, I'm just bringing in some amazing guests here. We're talking about a lot of amazing topics, important topics that I think need to be talked about and are not being talked about enough. So I hope you guys are enjoying all these interviews and with the great guest I have, and I hope you guys are starting to look into some of this information that we're bringing to you, because I really think it's important. And if I didn't, I wouldn't be doing this, because it's just something I got to do, and it's information I have to get out there because it's just not being talked about enough. And some people, I hear people say that people are waking up and starting to, get their head out of the clouds and start to look into some of these topics, but not nearly quick enough, in my opinion. So I think these are great topics that we're covering, and I hope you guys are learning and looking into these things. And I have great guests lined up for me this evening. I did have them on my Revolution Radio show a few weeks ago, and we had a great conversation for a couple hours. We were talking about a lot of great topics. We were talking about homeschooling. We were talking about a topic that I don't see many people talking about, which is the whole birthing process and some of the things that are bad with it, And so I thought I had to get them on this show here for my YouTube channel, and just to, bring them on and have a discussion with them and talk about some of these things. I think it's really important. And they're a young couple doing 4 children, and they're doing it, man. It's a hard work, as we were talking off air, and it's not an easy path when you decide to do the great work. And I think that's something that's not talked about enough, is that when you decide to do this path, if you're really going to do it, there's sacrifices. As I tell you guys, there's going to be sacrifices that have to be made. Are you willing to make those sacrifices? Are you really willing to do it and, take that journey? And I mean, a lot of people say they do, but a lot of people are not willing to make those commitments and sacrifices. So I wanted to get them on here, have a great discussion. I hope you guys enjoy it. So I'm just going to go ahead. I babble a lot at the beginning, guys. I know I do. So I'm just going to go ahead and get my guest on here. Welcome, guys, to the Crypt. How are you doing? Rob and Jen, it's great to have you guys here. Don't unmute your mic. I was like, they're going to forget. But that's cool. I do it all the time. Don't worry. So how are you guys doing?
We're doing good. Thank you for having us here, Rick. We appreciate it.
I love having you. I was just saying at the beginning, we had you on the radio show about 3 weeks ago, and it was an amazing conversation. I learned a lot. And what it got me wanted to talk to you guys was because I did see you guys for the F.U.N.L presentation, which I've talked about. I've had people talk about it on this show many times already. And it was an amazing topic. And I've told people, I don't have children myself, but I do have a lot of friends that have kids, and I have friends right now that are thinking of having children. And the topic that you guys covered was amazing. And I found it super interesting in your presentation. I learned so much from it, and plus from our talk on the radio. And it's just a topic I don't see a lot of people talking about, to be honest. And it's just not a topic that a lot of people are talking about. A little bit more now with the homeschooling and that doing the last couple of years. But I just want to start right at the beginning, because maybe somebody didn't hear it. Maybe a couple of people listening didn't hear the radio interview. And so I want to just, let us know a little bit about you guys and where this all started for you.
Sure. Well, for us, we have 6 kids. 2 of my oldest who are from a previous relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And our first daughter together, we were in the JC locally, and she was a speech teacher, and she saw that I was pregnant, and so she recommended that we listen to The Business of Being Born. And so we took a recommendation, and right after we watched it, we knew that we were going to have a natural birth at that point. Every experience that I've had in a hospital or even a birth center was very traumatic and uncomfortable for me. And so by the time we got to our youngest, who's now 3, I had someone mention the topic of unassisted birth. And so that's what really, I think I had like how long, like 4 or 5 months to really prepare for doing it on my own. But I knew that that was what I was going to do. And so I joined groups on Facebook, is where I really got all my information from moms that had done it like multiple times. Like, these women are just so empowering, and I really couldn't have done it without them. And just telling their experience, and you can ask them any question and they'll just walk you through any fear. They have podcasts and everything. So that was really the pivotal point for us to know that, like, we would never birth again with a midwife or a doctor
or a hospital.
Yeah.
Ever again.
Right.
Yeah.
I can imagine how, like, I can only imagine. I've always wondered that for women that give birth in a hospital, that it has to be traumatic. I mean, the birth itself, I mean, is traumatic in itself. I can imagine that's going through your, the woman's body and what's going on. I can only imagine. I'm a guy, so I'm learning this as I go. Be patient with me, Jen. I don't know a lot about giving birth, obviously, but I'm very interested in it. I've always wondered that's got to be a very uncomfortable. I'm just thinking of it from your point of view, from being in that position. Like, you're in a hospital, big bright lights on you, doctors running around, nurses running around, you got your husband running around. It just seems like it would be so stressful to me to be in that state. And I just think that's really, it can't be good, right? Like, I mean, you're starting kind of like from problems right from the start. Would you not be in that high level of stress in that position?
Yeah, it's definitely a fear-based environment. And when you start saying no to them, like, no, I don't want an IV. No, I
want a catheter.
Yeah, I don't want this. They start treating you completely differently. Like, it's just really uncomfortable. And birth is supposed to be this spiritual experience.
Right.
And my unassisted birth was the most spiritual, empowering experience that I've ever had out of all my births.
Or anything in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's completely different in a hospital. They're constantly looking for something wrong. They're like dotting over you, and you're just trying to give birth, like, and so for that, like, I had no one dotting over me in my unassisted birth. Rob took care of the kids, and I was like just able to just get in my zone, and just, and the kids being there too, that was important for me so that they could see that we could do this, because we have 3 girls. So they could see, like, this is what we're supposed to do, this is what,
that's how nature works.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the hospital, I'm assuming that you can have your husband in there, obviously, but no kids would be. They wouldn't let your kids in during the birth in the hospital, would they? Or do they let you? I don't know.
I'm not really sure. We didn't even try, honestly. Right. We just had they stayed with family.
Right. Yeah. I'm just.
But right now, during the last couple of years, for sure, COVID, you can only have one person in the room for the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what it's right now with all the limitations being, taken back. But you had to be, vaccinated, or you had to have a COVID fake test before you even entered. And only one person can be there now for your birth.
Wow. So yeah, so the husband or partner's lucky to be in there. Never mind bringing anyone else in, right? Yeah. Those restrictions. That's a whole nother topic to go down one day with you guys for sure. One other thing I found interesting about your presentation too was you guys talked a little bit about the damage that ultrasounds and stuff like that can do, and I know that everybody. I assumed, being a guy, I never looked into ultrasounds that deeply, obviously, that they were totally safe and that there's nothing going on there. They do probably thousands a day. So what did you guys find out about ultrasounds? Can you give people some information, what you found out, or anything that goes on with them, like anything along that line?
Sure. So there's a book by Jim West. It's called
let's just grab it real quick.
There you go.
It's called the 50 Human Studies in Utero Conducted in Modern China Indicate Extreme Risk for Prenatal Ultrasound. And what he did was he went on a search for because the Western realm does have studies indicating harm. It's only in animals though. Right. So their thing is that we don't really know because it's only in animals, and so that's why they say that it's safe. So what he did was he found these studies in China. They're called the Chinese Human Studies, and the studies were conducted with really low levels. So the supposed to be standard level in the Western is 720 milliwatts. And these studies were conducted with, I'm talking, what were they? Like they were really low.
They're under 100 milliwatts. Mm-hmm. So right now the ultrasounds are at 720 milliwatts, and all the studies were conducted below 100 milliwatts. And when they first came out with ultrasound, they were at like 0.11 milliwatts, 0.11 in the beginning. Wow. In the 80s. Now, and then these studies in China were all done, from what we can tell, were done under 100 milliwatts. And then in 1991, they increased them to 720 milliwatts. And that's when the study stopped in 1991. So they no longer did studies. They no longer did on animals. And so, yeah. And so it's been increased by, they say, 8 times the amount.
And that just depends because they've went and looked at some of the machines, and some of the machines are at way high levels, like higher than we're talking. They were at like
I can't remember
over 1,000.
Really? And so that's high, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the doctors don't even know where to look to see what the intensity level is, and he did a study himself just to see if they even knew where the information was on the screen. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them didn't.
I think it was like, don't quote me on this, it's like 17% or 21%. It's really low. It's around 17%. Mm-hmm. Don't even know. They do know how to adjust the intensity levels. Yeah. And the rest of the 83% or so don't even know how to adjust the level. So they don't know if the machine's safe or not. So a lot of these operators, there's no one overseeing it. These people aren't trained well enough. They don't know anything about what they're doing. And they're just, using the sonar technology, because that's where it came from, and just putting on these babies without any knowledge of what they're doing.
Right. And that's kind of disturbing that they haven't done a lot of studies. Okay, so they've done animal studies, but not a lot on humans. Right.
They did cell studies and animal studies, and they found harm, but they said that they don't know about humans because it's not ethical here in the United States. Right. So in China it was different. I think back then, they have a one, back then they had a 1 baby law or a 2 baby law. Yep. You only have 1 or 2 babies. And people had to get abortions. And so they tested on women that were getting abortions. Mm-hmm. So they were able to test on this stuff. So that's where these studies came from.
That's incredible.
This book is pretty scary. I would never even, ultrasounds don't actually have any, they don't, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't do anything. They cannot tell you anything. They're completely false. All the readings that they give are completely false. I can't pull them up in my head right now, but I'll just tell you that ultrasounds is completely useless, basically.
Right.
And it does more harm and it does no good. They can't even tell. They may be able to tell the sex of your baby, but beyond that, like placenta previa, we're talking it's like 4% effective or something. And we're talking it's 96% ineffective in telling things. So it does no good. It causes more problems. It scares people, puts them in fear. Your baby has,
whatever it is
gonna
say.
Whatever they say, and then they're like, some people abort because like, oh, your baby's gonna have, disformations, or it's gonna be, something from our imaging we could tell.
And then it's not actually true.
It's not true, and they've done studies on that. And so the ultrasound itself as far as I can tell, there's nothing good about it.
It causes fertility issues. They actually use ultrasound in another, I don't know if it's in another country, but somewhere they use ultrasound as a sterilization for like men. So they give them like 15-minute blasts and it'll keep them infertile for 6 months. And it also opens up the blood-brain barrier. So when a mom's in labor, she has electric fetal monitors on her stomach, which those are worse than ultrasounds. They're a lot higher in intensity. And then after that, they do vaccines. And so the blood-brain barrier's open and the toxicity is just going straight to their brain. It's like an open pathway.
They have studies that show that it synergistically works together. So the secondary and the other things they do after ultrasounds, like vaccines, circumcision, it actually exponentially is worse. So mainly like vaccines and because it opens the blood-brain barrier, things like poisons like vaccines or whatever else you're doing are exposed to. Pharmaceuticals basically.
Even
pharmaceuticals.
the epidural, I'm thinking.
Yeah, all of it. Any pharmaceuticals you take now can pass the blood-brain barrier, like.
Oh, for sure. Right. That's really scary too. Like I'm learning a lot now. Talking to you guys again about ultrasounds and that is it's disturbing. I don't even know what to say. You got me speechless, which is not easy to do, guys. When I think about that and you think about how many ultrasounds do women normally get in a pregnancy? Like what's average? 4? I don't have a clue, so
I think it's between 3 to 5.
Wow.
And it is a really important topic. Even in the unassisted birthing community, what was it, like 71% of moms still get ultrasounds?
We did our own pools. We've been in unassisted birth. She's been in unassisted birth groups for a long time.
Okay.
And we took some pools in there in 3 different groups. And it was a couple hundred people. That's still a decent pool. And it was 71.
It was about, I think
it was
like 71% of them still get ultrasounds.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. So these people are not going to the hospital. They're doing it on their own, no interventions, but yet they're still doing the ultrasounds. And we found out that, I guess when you're at a job and you need to get like fraternity leave, one of the things you have to do is go to the hospital. And it doesn't matter how big you are, like you have to prove that you're pregnant still. Like they with Gin, they're like, we could tell that you're pregnant and we're sorry that we have to do this, but we have to know that you're pregnant. And so like we've did ultrasound with all our kids. So anything that we talk about, we've done all the things that we say that are wrong. Like we're not like saying we're like better than anyone else. We've done all of these things. We've harmed our kids. This one right here hasn't received any of the stuff and hasn't been to a hospital for anything. They never touched him. Other than that, all of our kids have had some experience with either our first one had vaccines and the rest didn't, but they all had ultrasounds. All of our girls, had ultrasounds.
Right.
So
yeah, exactly. I mean, you're learning as you go, right? I mean, that's a great thing. Yeah. I mean, so that's a great thing to say too, because you're learning as you go. But the fact is, you're looking into these things, and I don't think a lot of people do. Looking into like ultrasounds, they're so common. Like now they have ultrasound parties. I hear about those things where they're bringing, people have parties, they're showing the picture around. So once again, they've turned it into a business, right? Like anything else is the way I see it, that this is just a business. Like, I mean, they're making if you're doing that many ultrasounds during a pregnancy, you think of how many women are pregnant and they're giving all these ultrasounds. But what's crazy is that you think there'd be so much more studies on humans. I mean, yeah, okay, it's great you're doing it on animals and you're doing some studies in China and places like that, but not nearly enough, I would think, for the amount that they're giving. And the technicians not even really knowing what they're doing, right? They're just kind of winging it sounds. And that's really scary.
One of our babies, that we had a new technician and she made mistakes on all of her stuff and she had to redo all of it. And so we were there for so long, just frying our baby and not knowing it. Wow. And it's so sad. It's just sad to think about. And
it is.
And we did all these mistakes, and
right. No, hey, don't be hard on yourself, Rob. I'm serious. I mean, you guys are figuring it out and you're talking about it, which is amazing. this is what, and I don't, like I was saying at the beginning, I don't hear a lot of people talking about this stuff. I mean, I'm hearing a little bit more about homeschooling, and that kind of like within the last 2 years, that's kind of really taken. I've heard people talking about it. I haven't seen anybody myself in my area actually do it, but I want to talk about definitely homeschooling in a minute. What other, like, okay, so we talked about ultrasounds, and then you're saying that when you're pregnant, they put electrodes on your stomach, right? And they're monitoring through the whole pregnancy while you're giving birth. So that's even doing more damage.
We chose like to do presentations on birth because we felt that from psychologists and psychiatrists and not only looking around, seeing what's going on in our world, that we were trying to figure out what's going on. And a lot of it actually develops at birth. A lot of our
100%.
everything develops at birth. And so, and so it's not just ultrasounds, it's all synergistically works together with vaccines, circumcision, all these things, cause brain damage. So there's a quote by Janice Barcel that says like every hospital experience, impedes on the love of our baby, or something like that. I don't have the quote in my brain, but the point is that anything you do in the hospital is going to stop the connection of love to your baby. Like every intervention they do,
right?
So even putting a hat on a baby, swaddling, those are things that all people do. Every single parent, they put a hat on their baby. That stops you from smelling the baby's head and smelling their pheromones, which is actually part of the love process. Swaddling the baby actually is pretty close to circumcision in the sense that it puts them in the state of fear, and they look like they're calm, but they're actually freaking out inside. They've done studies on it. The babies are freaking out so much, and they're releasing the stress hormone while they're being swaddled, and they look like they're comfortable, and they're
right.
But everything we do in a hospital causes some harm. Every single thing,
right?
So,
yeah, no, I get that. I think about that. I really do. I've thought about it over when I think about it, what women go through, and I just think that we've gotten so far away from, I mean, let me kind of preface it this way. I was having a talk with a friend before I did this interview. We were talking while I was outside, and he was saying that, we were talking about C-sections and stuff like that. And he was saying that his wife would have lost her life if it wasn't for a C-section, that she would have, they told her like she wouldn't have made it through because she couldn't dilate or something. I'm not a doctor. I don't understand what he was really saying, but I kind of get the picture that she couldn't dilate big enough and they had to do a C-section. And so I get that there's a time for it. I don't want to ever say that there's not a place for this if you're having trouble with a birth, because there is complications with birth. I think even you guys would agree with that there is a time for this. I think I could be wrong, but I do believe that from what my limited knowledge. But I still think that most of the time we're getting so far away from what is, like you guys are talking about, like natural birth. Like it used to be something that was done, like you guys kind of said, with the family, right? You have your children around and you're in a comfortable environment and stuff like that. And it just seems that we've gotten so far away from that by everybody having to go to a hospital and then go through all of this. Like, what are your guys like? Do you not agree that we've gotten away from that?
There was a study done by one guy who said, we were reading it before, and I'm not going to quote these off the back of my brain. We're new at this. This is our second interview, and we've only done one presentation, so we're new with this, and getting this stuff like in our brain and putting it out there and regurgitating is very difficult. But there was a study where a guy said only 3% of births need to be induced.
Okay.
And so in U.S. hospitals, 81% of people are being induced in some form. That means like Pitocin. Help me out here. Like what else? Like
it's not necessarily for an actual medical reason.
Yeah.
A lot of their interventions actually it's like a cascade of intervention. Okay. And so the study that this person did said that only 3% of induced labors are actually needed. And so yeah, it's scary because with 81% of US hospitals inducing people, it's we're taking away our children's choice of coming into this world. We're immediately like being the authoritarian for whatever reason. It could be like fear from whatever the doctor's telling us, because that's mostly where it comes from. Or we're just like tired of being pregnant. That's a lot of stuff, right? And they say you can't go past 42 weeks, but we did another poll in my unassisted birthing group because I was just curious. And out of everyone that answered, it was the majority, like
how many people?
A lot of people went over 42 weeks. And we put this set date and time for our baby to come out, instead of like just letting them and being okay with them coming when they want to. And so it's a lot more common than people think. I think that with all the interventions and just hospitals being there and women being in fear, we don't allow ourselves to trust the process and our bodies and our babies, and that's really causing a lot of damage on so many levels.
So the hospitals won't let you go over 42 weeks. They will not let you. And so we did a poll, 144 moms, we have it written down here because we just looked at it. 144 moms said that they did. That's total. No, this is the total, 127, 144. So 144 moms said that they didn't go over, and 127 did go over. We didn't take the time to do the math, but there's a 17 people difference. So we're thinking like 45% around there.
Right.
So somewhere around 45%, just give or take, go over, and they stop that. They will not let that happen in the hospital. Wow. They feel like it's too dangerous. It's too scary. They make up all these things, and so
they just say your baby's gonna die.
Yeah, that's what they scare you. They put fear into you, deep fear.
Yeah, that's crazy. And that poll that you did is actually pretty revealing. Like how many went over that? That's not like a small number. Like I thought you were going to say maybe 5 people or something went over the amount of time that you said, the amount of weeks. And then when you said that was a lot. Like, so definitely that's crazy that they have a set time on that they will not go over in the hospital. Like, and every woman's different, right? I mean, I don't understand who came up with this number and why. I'm just curious. I'm just trying to figure that out right now. Like, why this number? And why is it, if it's an extra week or two and they're going to be telling you that you could die from it or your baby or something, like there's stress added on again.
They say that your baby is going to be too big a lot of times. That's what they say.
Yeah. Wow.
That's what they say. Yeah. It'll be too big.
Or that your amniotic fluid is low.
Oh,
but
yeah,
then it's like your baby's bigger. So of course, like the fluid's not gonna look the same as when, they're just not so big. And so that's one of the things that they scare people with too.
Yeah, for sure. And then so I remember when I'm trying to remember our last interview too, I was kind of listening back to it because we were talking and I was thinking about back to your presentation too, which I found interesting, that when a woman goes into, and please, Jen, correct me, or Rob, anything, if I get anything wrong or misquote you, please tell me. I'm not above that. I'm just trying to remember accurately that when a woman starts going into labor, and there's a whole process that goes on in the woman's body, correct? And so where I'm going with this is that if you go to a hospital and they start giving you injections and they're doing all of these things, from what I remember in your presentation, you guys were talking about how that kind of interferes with the natural process, right? Like your body is going through these changes and they kind of have to happen in a certain way during the birthing process. And if that gets interrupted for whatever reason, if they're giving you injections, they're inducing it, they're making it slow down, whatever they're doing, all these different injections and stuff, that's dangerous too, right? If they're not letting the woman go through the whole process the way it should be done, if I'm wording that right.
A lot of the times they give Pitocin now, which speeds up the process because they're a business. So they have to have the babies in and out. Right. Like they're a business. The faster you get in and out. So they start using things that aren't necessarily, even some of the stuff's not FDA approved. So for whatever reason and however they do it, the stuff's not approved and they get you in and out. And Pitocin's like a synthetic oxytocin, which is the love hormone. And they get that from the pituitary glands from different animals, various animals. and then they give it to you. And I guess Jen was finding out that it doesn't actually ripen your cervix, right?
It doesn't actually help you dilate.
That's what it is.
And so a lot of the times, like, moms will go in there and then it'll be like a failed induction, so then they have to leave. But also I forgot what I was going to say, actually.
So like when I was reading about Pitocin, it's like a 40-50% chance that it'll work. So like they give you Pitocin in the hospital because moms freak out. It's hard. It's hard to be pregnant. Oh, I'm going into labor, and they go to the hospital. They start doing Pitocin, and then they don't start dilating, which is, getting bigger. And they're like, look, you just have to go home. And Pitocin gives you these fake contractions that are nonstop. So they're not real. Your body produces like real stuff going on, and it's more natural. Pitocin's just hardcore contraction after contraction after contraction. There's no breaks, and it could go on for hours and hours and hours.
I remembered what the Pitocin does is it's a synthetic oxytocin, and what happens in your oxytocin in our bodies is actually it's the love hormone.
Okay.
And so when you have Pitocin, your body has an oxytocin overload. So it actually shuts off your own like production of oxytocin. And what that's doing is like, normally when your baby's born and you're like smelling them and snuggling with them, you release that hormone, and that's what helps you to bond with your baby. And the Pitocin's completely shutting that off.
Really?
And yeah. And it's scary because 81% of births this is what's happening.
Right. Yeah, you're right too. And then I wanted to ask you, Jen, about C-sections, because I've been talking to people in the U.S. and I know here, because I'm in Canada, that they really try not to do a C-section here in Canada, from what I found out. Now, whether the data's changed since I because I'm looking at older data, I don't know. I looked at the best data that I could find, and in Canada, they really don't want to do C-sections. I mean, they kind of look at it as a last resort, but then I talked to people in the U.S., and it's kind of a common thing to get a C-section. It's kind of like what they almost recommend to a lot of women. Do you know anything about that? Like, is that something that they're recommending more, or do you not know? Or I'm just curious, because I know in Canada, like I said, they're trying not to do them, but then I've heard from people, women I've talked to in the U.S., that they kind of recommend that instead of giving birth.
I have a friend who had her first child, and she had a C-section due to the cord being wrapped around the baby's neck, which I just want to put this out there that I've also read about that, and they used to teach midwives that you can just like stick your fingers underneath the cord and try to like get it off.
I've heard that. Yep.
They don't teach doctors that, and it's kind of like a lost art, sort of. So she had a C-section, and she just recently had another baby last year in August, and they would not let her have a vaginal birth.
Hospitals won't do it if you're high risk. If you had a C-section, you will not have a vaginal birth again. Not in a hospital.
And is there a what do they give you a reason? Do they just
That's high risk? You're high risk.
You just can't. Yeah.
You're high risk.
They just won't let you.
Yeah.
Really? Jeez.
Yeah.
That's crazy, Rob. I'm just speechless. I really am, because I don't think a lot of people sit down and think about this topic. I really don't, and it's something that doesn't get enough coverage, I don't think. I'm so thankful that you guys are talking about this, because I'm hoping people that are that have had children and are thinking of having children are going to look at this and ask them hard questions, because I know I would. And so like another thing I was curious about too is because, and I was asking my mom about this, and back when she was younger and having children, like me and my brother and stuff like that, they were very big on breastfeeding, and mother's milk was, the best thing and all of that. And then I've kind of seen over the years that there's a push to put them on formula and start like that. Now, are they trying to are they telling mothers that breastfeeding is still really good, they should be doing it, or are they trying to tell mothers now that they shouldn't be doing it and put them on this formula that what's
Yeah.
the deal with that?
I forget the average breastfeeding age that they talk about. I think it's like 6 months or a year.
Right?
It's very short. The average breastfeeding age around the world is 5 years.
Really?
So, yeah, it's hard for people to hear and understand, especially in like places like the United States where we have to work and we have to do things.
Right.
And moms, it's sad because I don't think that like this information is going to go very far in the sense that like it's hard. Both parents have to work now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our first baby, Anya, together, our first baby together, we had to pump and stuff because we were going to breastfeed no matter what, but we had to pump. She was in school. We were going to junior college. She worked nights. We had separate schedules at that time because we still wanted the kids to be. And so the baby would cry for hours. And then I would drive the baby, Anya, our daughter, to her school or work, wherever she was at. And then finally she was okay. 3 hours of crying was all I could take. And the baby, Anya, wouldn't take the bottle. And so those were great experiences. Unfortunately, it was hard for us, but it taught me a lot of things. Like the baby wants the mom.
Yep.
Like if the baby's around the mom, like our kids don't cry anymore. Like we're kind of attachment parenting, homeschool now. That after the first daughter, I said, look, you have to quit work. This is just it. Was it third?
It was her third. Yeah.
I thought it was after her first, but it was so traumatic to me though, being home and screaming for 3 hours that I just couldn't do it anymore. And so,
well, that's the thing, right? They're taking, and that's the thing that's really, and I've even noticed this is that they are destroying, they're trying to tear apart the family unit. I can see that so clearly. And I know a lot of people maybe can't, but I see what they're doing. And especially over the last 2 years, I've seen it, like especially the 2 years revealed a lot to me, actually, guys, like what was going on in the world and how bad it was. I mean, I always known it was bad, but I didn't have a real, like I had an understanding, but I didn't realize how bad. And then 2 years ago, when I saw what they were doing, it really gave me a kick in the ass that I have to start speaking out because I saw what was going on. And I do, like I was saying earlier, I have friends that have children. And it's amazing how young that they're taking like children away from their parents. And I'm saying that because, as you were saying, Rob, it's hard, right? Because you have they have people so run ragged. Like both parents have to work just to pay their bills and put food on the table and stuff like that. So when I was growing up, you had kindergarten, and then you had and at least in Canada, I don't know how it is in the school system exactly in the U.S., but here we had like kindergarten, and then like public school, and then high school kind of thing, and then college, university, all of that. But now I'm hearing that they have like pre-kindergarten, and then before pre-kindergarten, you have daycare. So that cannot be good for parents if they're giving up their children basically to strangers from such a young age, right? Like we're going to be seeing the ramifications of this coming down the pipe.
We did that with our first two together. So Anya and our second daughter, Serenity, and both of them went to daycare. Serenity didn't go for that long, actually. She wasn't there that long. And at some point we decided, that we were done with all of that. Like,
well, we lost, my oldest daughter died, and
I'm sorry.
I was pregnant with our third, and we at that point, like, if anything shows you the truth about life, that was it. We were like, okay, that's it, I'm staying home with the kids.
Yeah,
we didn't really care, like, it's hard just having one person work, but our family at that point was way more important to us than anything else.
Right.
And our life's difficult, so we just wanted, since that we're on that topic, like, doing the things that we do is very difficult, meaning like we consider ourselves to be anarchists, and we'll say that, like, meaning that we don't pay taxes. We try not to, I even, for a while we weren't paying registration and stuff like that on the car, but that didn't work out very well. Like, they took the cars from us and kept taking them. So we just tried different things. Like, we felt like we owned ourselves and no one's here to own us. And we went down all these paths, and some of them didn't work. Like, we couldn't afford to have our car taken all the time and impounded, and cops having more authority than we do and stuff like that. But we we went down that path anyways. And it's very difficult because I get cash jobs. So like I could go get my license and have lots of money. I've got people saying, hey, I got work for you. Go get your license, you know, and I do high-end painting. So like for rich people and, you know, these super homes that are in magazines and stuff like that. And if I got my license, I could have endless amounts of work, but it's, I don't like license. The license means, you know, permission from the government to do something. And so that's literally what it means. And I'm my shirt right here, anarchy. Like I'm totally against the government, and anything that I cannot do or can do without them, I do without them. And we're not perfect. We do everything that we're able to do, and some things we can't do, you know?
Right.
So we do have, you know, actually right now we don't have registration in our car, but we're going to get it so that our car doesn't get taken. Right. So for the past 7 years, you know, we've struggled with these things that we're deciding that we just can't do. Like, you know, like you have to draw a line. Like what can you do that doesn't affect your family where you're going to starve to death? But yet we still struggle. We barely, you know, I'm the only one that works. We have one car. We live in a trailer, and that's about as far as we're going to go. Like, I'm not going to go live on the street. So you have to draw a line somewhere about how far you're willing to go. We've homeschooled. They've never been to school. Our oldest went to the hospital, had vaccines up to 1 year. And the rest of them haven't. The rest of the three kids, they've never been to the doctors. They've never been to the dentist. They've never had the last three never had vaccines. You know, so we grew as we went along.
Right.
Oh, he doesn't have a social security number or a birth certificate.
Yeah, we decided to go all the way.
Yeah.
You know, like because how could we decide to like cut, you know, self-mutilate a baby without his permission, like meaning circumcision? Like how could you give him a social security number, which is like a tie to like the stock market? And, you know, if he wants that later in life, like, well, he may not be able to get one, but you know, that's his choice. Like he could get one somehow. You know,
right? Yeah, it is a hard. Yeah, that's what I was saying at the beginning. It is a hard. Sacrifices have to be made, right? And a lot of people they're not willing to make them. If we're being honest, they're not. And you know, I commend you guys for doing that, and for being honest that it's hard. I like you were saying when we were talking off air, Rob, that a lot of people don't talk about how hard it is, right? They kind of gloss over that part, and it's great that you're talking about that. It is hard. That this isn't an easy path once you start going down it, but you know, there, like you said, you have to put your line in the sand somewhere, right? And it's a fine line because, like you said, you have to keep. I mean, I get what you're saying. You have to put food on the table. You have bills to pay like everyone else. It's the system, and it's hard to exist in the system and try to unplug from it at the same time, if you know what I mean.
So you take baby steps. So we didn't unplug all the way all the time. So we just slowly unplugged as far as we could, and then we had our limit, and we have to stay in the system. We have to have a driver's license. You know, I tried suing a cop. Like the DMV made a mistake one time and took our car and left all my kids and a dog stranded on the street. Took me to jail just because the DMV made a mistake. We sued the cop, and he started coming after me, and he set me up. He started texting me and Facebooking me and saying he has jobs for me and this and that. And anyways, he got me. And so they go out of their way to get you. And we just couldn't do it. We couldn't do it anymore. Like I didn't want to fight these people who are above the law.
Right. Well, they are. Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I was trying to say. Like I was doing an interview with somebody, and it just kind of goes to what we were just talking about with the system. And we were talking about a lot of people are trying to change the system from within. And we were kind of talking, and we're like, you're never going to change the system from within because the system for the elite is working perfect. This is what they want. So you're never going to change that. They are so implanted and have every quarter covered. And I try to keep telling people that you're dealing with a very evil level of, I call them master psychologists, because that's exactly what these people are. They know humanity better than we know ourselves, and they know how to... The social engineers know what they're doing, and that's what we're up against. And I try to tell people, like, it's more serious than you think, that these people are really good at what they do, and they're firing all guns at us right now. And yeah, like we were just talking about it in the interview, and I was saying that, and we were both agreeing that you're never going to change the system from within, and because it works too well. That's the way they want it. So that's a big thing that people have to realize, that this isn't going to happen by voting or anything like that. We're never going to tear it down that way. This is a spiritual battle, a battle on consciousness too.
I studied, just off topic, like I said, I studied law for a couple of years, and through the truth movement, and I don't believe that there was any laws that actually went our way. Meaning, you could get something changed,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't matter. If you did change something, it didn't affect them.
Right.
So everything like property tax, when they lifted the thing where, there used to be here in the United States, that there used to be, some law or statute that said, because they're not laws, they're actually codes and statutes. I'm
Yep.
sorry. And so that the property tax, where you could pay, you were stuck, you're paying like $400 a year, but now it's like 1%, and so people are paying $600, $1,000 a month in property tax now. And so a lot of people can't afford that. My point is that, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but the point is that people think people think they can change these things, but who would have voted that in? Who would vote to allow their property tax to go up to, $600 a month versus $400 a year? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and you think you're going to vote that away? Like, there's nothing that's been voted to help us. Like, people think that, you're going to vote and, have something come our way. It doesn't work that way. And I saw that a long time ago.
Me
and
too.
I've never voted. I've been a registered voter. I've never voted in my life. I've never participated in those kind of things. And yeah,
I agree 100%. I'm the same way. I don't
paid
vote.
taxes maybe 3 years in my life,
Right.
not because I wanted to.
Right. Yeah, that's why I was saying they have the system, it's in their favor, right? And that's what I was trying to tell people, because a lot of people say that nothing's changing, and I hear a lot of people still, which blows my mind away, Rob, that people think that we're going to vote this problem away that's going on in the world, and they're like, we just got to get the right people in and it'll all change. And I'm like, this hasn't worked in the past. It's not working now, and it's never going to work in the future. It can't work because of what government itself is based in, right? Which is like coercion and violence, and it's slavery. And then, so how is it? It's never going to work, but people still have this mindset that it's going to work. And I know people in my own life that truly think government's here to help us. They really do. They believe it. They're like, government is here. They make mistakes, but they're here to help. And I'm just like, wow, like we're up against a big battle here for people that are so brainwashed into this belief. And it's a cult belief that they have.
Well, the word government literally means to control the mind. I have a t-shirt. It's not on me right now, but it literally means to control, or to steer the mind, right? To control the mind. And voting, I can't remember the verb it comes from, but it means to a deity, to pray to a deity, like it's like just all these things. If you look up these words alone will tell you the truth if you find out the origin. So that's a big thing. Like, although I can't pull them off my mind, but when you look up words, they tell you everything.
Exactly. The origins.
Yeah.
I think too that a lot of people just comply. And so once you start like exercising your rights, like first you find out like, oh my God, I have rights. I can say no because I want, like, I don't want this done to me. That's when the truth starts coming out. Like, I recently got pulled over for not having a registration by a CHP officer. And I didn't have my license on me either because it was at home in Anya's purse because she was holding it for me. And she was so angry at me for not having anything. And she started like, I did the wrong thing by having my window all the way down. And she started like looking in my car and she's like, your children aren't restrained properly. Open this door. And I was like, I'm not opening this door. You need a warrant to come into my car. And I was so scared. And she was so angry because it is scary to say no to these people. We've been trained from children to obey authority. That's from little kids. We've had behavior modification. If you have to just obey, and then you're a good boy or girl, right? And she ended up was like, oh, I'm going to call my superior and have more people come out here. And I was so scared. I rolled my window up eventually, and she came back and she was so angry at me. She started trying to stuff her ticket book through my window because I had rolled it up. And it was just, it's just those experiences though, even though I was so scared, it's like, I wish that more people would have those experiences, because then you would know, like, you would know that this isn't okay. I wish that more people would say, no, you can't come in my car. I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't want you in my house to CPS. Like, I'm not doing anything. And because then you would know that these people are in the wrong and you're in the right.
Right. And that's the problem, though, Jen, is that I've done this study myself because I watch a lot of Mark Passio's work. I'm sure you guys know Mark Passio and his presentations. And he talks about the problem is people don't even know what a right is. And I was like, people have to know what a right is. And he said, if you don't believe me, go out and do a poll. Go out in public, which I love doing. I didn't like it at first. I was nervous like everyone else, but I love doing it now. Love getting in people's faces. It's something I enjoy doing. I really do. So I did this poll. I was like, I went out with sheets of paper and I just asked people to write down this very simple definition of what a right is. And people could not do it, guys. They did not even know the simple definition of right. They could not say that a right is an action that does not cause any harm to another sovereign being. They couldn't do it.
Have you had one person ever give you the right answer?
Never.
Yeah, me neither.
They don't, and so I keep telling people, no wonder we're losing our rights, and nobody's fighting for our rights because they don't even know what they are. So of course they're giving them away, right? And we've seen this over the last couple of years. I mean, I've seen it and I'm sure you guys have too, for many more than the last couple of years. But I'm saying really bad in the last couple of years of them taking away rights and taking away more of our freedoms. And people seem to me that they're just happy to roll over and just give them away. And we all know that once government takes something, they never give it back. They never do. They never give this power back. Once we give it to them, they take it and they want more. They never give it back. And I just think people need to start learning from the basics of even what a right is. I mean, how...
That's why we started calling our podcast series and our whole thing. We bought naturallawbirth.com, which Perfect. We haven't developed yet. It's not there. But
it will be.
We bought it. It will be there. And so, in natural law is like natural meaning inherent, God-given rights, right? Not by man. And then law meaning immutable. It's unchangeable. So they use the word law for statutes and codes, but those change. They change. They could just write some law in and pretty soon, a business is out of business, or or you can't do something, and that's not immutable, so it can't be called a law. Right. And codes and statutes. Codes mean secrets, and anyways, and so they,
and this then, as Jen was saying, this belief in authority, right? Like people have this belief, this false belief in authority, and it's a great way to actually talk about because it brings us right back to homeschooling, which I did want to touch on with you guys. So it brings it right back. We're swinging right around, which it ties in perfectly because, as Jen was saying, they started the authority training right when they put them in school. I mean, you're right away you have to follow the teacher, and when you see where the schooling system has come from, right out of the Marxist school, right? Like, I mean, they've got this playbook that they're playing by, and they start children so young in these schools, right? It's incredible. Like, so what is your, like, I'm just curious about what your guys thought of the school system. What do you guys think of this?
I think that it also starts with the parents.
That's what I was going to say.
100%. Yep. You're right.
And then they go to school.
That's why we're doing this. Yeah. That's why we're doing
it. It even starts within birth. I mean, you're still going to this outside source instead of collecting all this knowledge yourself to empower yourself. You're going outside to have this outside authority that doesn't know you, doesn't know your body. You could, as a woman, could totally know everything about yourself if you wanted to. And even induction, I mean, that's already not giving your child the choice. You're being the authoritarian in that moment, and
you're giving it away. You're giving it away to someone else. A deep satanic cult, really.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
that's really what it is.
It is, and that's you made a great point, Jen. Thank you for correcting me because you're right. It starts with the parents, and you're 100% right. And if you have parents that aren't educated in what is objective morality, they don't know anything about natural law, they don't know anything about these topics, and they're not teaching it to their children, and they are just giving their children to these authority schools and they're handing them over to these government schools to teach them. And you're right. It should be taught at home with the parents.
So the question is like, what are you really birthing? I mean, if you don't know what a right is, and you're giving away your kids to schools or you're going to the hospital, I mean, what are you birthing into the world? And so that's why our focus is on birth.
Right.
And we're going to see that with birth, we can go into all those other topics of authority.
For sure.
And everything else from there. But we feel it's the most important. Even in the truth movement, people aren't aware of the damages of ultrasounds and the synergistic of working with vaccines and other pharmaceuticals or the Pitocin or whatever else they're taking at birth.
Right.
And they all work together.
For sure. I was shocked with your guys' presentation. I really was. I was fascinated watching it because it's just stuff I never thought about really. I mean, and I don't think a lot of people do, and that's why I commend you guys for talking about this. It's just not something that's talked about enough about what's going on with the birthing process. It's kind of something that people just don't think about, I don't think, unless you're actually in it. And that's a good thing that you were talking about too with vaccines. Like with the vaccines, how young are children when they start giving them vaccines? Like, it must be very young, right? That they start wanting to give vaccines.
It's right out of birth.
Day one.
Day
Within
one.
hours.
Wow.
It's actually they give the parents the whooping cough vaccine. So while you're pregnant, and it's never been tested. If you look it up, it's never been tested on pregnant women. And here you are taking this whooping cough vaccine that's never been tested on pregnant women. They don't know the repercussions of it. And they say that it's safe and effective and take it. But you're like, wait a minute, it's never been tested. And so the stuff just doesn't add up. I mean, when you look at this stuff, like with the logical mind, and if you really go deep into it, you'll see right through the whole picture. Viruses have never been isolated. The viruses, if we do have viruses, they're natural things in our body. Supposedly like 70% of our body are made up of just bacteria and worms, various things and viruses that all work synergistically to take care of your body. And as long as you're eating right and you're taking good care of yourself, your body will be okay for the most part, depending on how your mom, there is a past to it, but for the most part, epigenetics says that you could change your cells at any time. So you could change yourself by changing your diet, basically.
Right. Exactly. And that's, exactly. 100%, man. You guys are nailing it. And so with the homeschooling, like I'm really passionate about talking about homeschooling because I know 100%, and I've talked about it with my wife, that if we ever did have children, 100% I would homeschool. I would find a way. And I've talked to people that do have children right now, and I kind of bring up the topic lightly because I found out the hard way that you got to be very careful when you talk to people about raising their children, because if you kind of go at them the wrong way, they get really defensive. So I've learned to warm up a little bit and suggest things lightly and talk about things lightly and just kind of like get their thoughts on it. And everything that I hear from people with the homeschooling is that where are they going to find the time to do this? They have no teaching skills. They have 100 different reasons. And mostly it's that they don't know how to teach and that they don't have the time. They're too busy working. And I think it's because people look at homeschooling the wrong way. I think they're thinking that you have to do it like in a school, right? Like you have to have a classroom. You got to do it 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day. You got to do that. That's not what homeschooling is, right? Like, can you guys let people know what homeschooling is like? Like the right way. It's not like a classroom. You're not imitating the classroom in your home is what I'm trying to say.
So we homeschooled for the past couple of years with Anya and Serenity. The problem even with homeschooling is it's forced learning. At least it was for us, right? So we had a curriculum, and it was just like we thought that we had to do this and that this is what we were going to do, and the kids didn't like it. And it's the same thing with school. It's forced learning. So even though we were homeschooling, I was still forcing them to learn, and we didn't spend 8 hours a day doing it. It would only take like an hour or two, even though they were fighting it the whole time. And so for past couple weeks, Dana Martin, she's a really good advocate for children's rights, and she writes a book called Radical Unschooling, and she's a big advocate for unschooling too. And so we've been doing unschooling. So we don't do a curriculum, it's child-led learning. So whatever they're into, we just grab that. And recently Ani, she's been interested in doing podcasts. She wants to do a podcast
That's
on
amazing.
yeah, she wants to do podcasts on the harm that's being caused to the animals in the ocean. So we got on Microsoft Word, and she's learning computer skills. She's learning how to write. We were typing out an outline. She's learning to make presentations. Everything they do is there's learning already in everything that they're doing,
Right.
And I think it's important to look at it that way. Like, just living life is so much learning, really.
The world is our classroom, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How old is she? And she wants to do a podcast.
She's 9.
Incredible. And on such an important topic too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's incredible. I mean, and that's amazing to me. That age, and wants to do a podcast, and about an important topic too, like something that's serious. And learning, and you're right, they're learning so much, and they're doing something that she's doing something that she wants to do. So she's gonna want to learn, right? Like, that's what I hated about school too, was you're there 8 hours a day, and then you're jumping from subject to subject to subject, and they're trying to cram as much information in your head, and it's just, I've done enough studying now and talking to people and teachers and that are out of that system, that the brain doesn't work that way. You can't cram. Like, you're trying to cram all this information in, and it's not the way that we learn. Like, the brain, you have to take in the information in little chunks, like you process it, feel it out. And so it's such an unnatural way, the schooling system. I just think everything about it is unnatural. They're basically turning young minds, they're shutting their creativity down and their energy, and they're just want them to conform to this rigid schedule, and then put them out in the workforce. Like, that's what they're doing. They're creating workers. They don't want thinkers. They don't want people that stand out on their own. They want everybody to be the same, and it's just not a natural way to learn at all. I knew that at a young age.
Completely agree. And before we knew fully about truth and all this stuff, we already knew our kids weren't going to be in school. We knew, like, we both had bad experiences with school. So
me too.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of things we picked up, like, before we knew truth fully, we knew we weren't going to lie to them about, the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus. There was a lot of things we had figured out from our own lives that we weren't going to do before we fully knew truth and knew what was right. And
Amazing.
So we were already on the path, so to speak, before we actually, we're still just on the path. Let me just say that.
Right.
We'll always be on the path. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, there's always more learning, and we could keep learning. And one thing, because it was 2012 when I took that speech class, and had a so-called natural birth, and we've been going from there. And I started watching documentaries maybe 3 years before that, and that's all I watched. And that wasn't research. I just took information in. I never looked anything up, just kept taking it in. In 2012 is when I dived deep, and I didn't sleep. I would stay at nights, read books and forums, and that's when the groups really started in 2012, the so-called anti-vaccine groups and such, and I was a part of them. And that's when we changed our diet to organic diet, was in 2012, and it just keeps going. You start with that, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to be vegetarian, oh, I'm going to be vegan, and then it just keeps going and going and going, and it'll always go. Like, there's so much knowledge out there. There's so much harm and things that they the food's fake. Strawberries are fake and bananas are fake, and they're man-made. They're not even real. I mean, I'm not saying they're not good for you. I'm just saying, you find out these foods were man-made and they're not even real. And you just keep going and going, and you're trying to figure out what's real and what's not. And it takes years. It takes years of knowledge, and
Oh, it definitely does. You're always learning. I mean, I'm always learning, and that's why I love doing these interviews and meeting people too, because I learn really well that way. It's just something I enjoy doing. I'm always get energized doing these interviews, because meeting people that are like-minded, and then are, we're all learning together. And I think that's great to get that out there. And I love talking about this topic because it's like I was saying earlier, it's just a topic I don't hear anybody really talking about. And you guys, so your presentation caught my eye right away, and I enjoyed it. I know you guys said that it was your first one and stuff like that, but I think it was great. I think you guys did a great job and a lot of great information in there. You guys touched on a lot of things, and that made me sit back and wonder. And the fact that you guys are learning as you go, and you admit that it's hard. I mean, you don't hear many people talk about that part of it. So that's really important too, to let people know that it is hard what you're doing, but you are doing it. And to me, that's amazing. It really is, guys.
Making the choice to do what's right is really hard.
It is. Because they reward the bad things, right? Like, I mean, think about the whole like I think about in the workforce and stuff like that, they're not teaching values or morality or anything. Basically, it's like you climb over whoever you can to get higher up in the wherever you're working. You know, who cares about morals? It's all about, and then how much can you? Yeah, it's all about money, right? And it's crush anybody you have to get ahead. And they just start that so young, putting this competitiveness and that in the children. And I mean, and then you got the parents who are in this cycle too, right? And they're having kids and then teaching their kids that. So I see this big cycle that they've got going on, and the fact that you guys are trying to break out of that, I just wish more parents were doing that, and I don't see a lot of them doing it. I hear a little bit, like I said, with the homeschooling, but I hear mostly a lot of excuses why they can't do it. They're just not willing to make the commitment.
It's very difficult. I think switching to unschooling and allowing them, we're still at the beginning stages, so they're more free. Our oldest has been like tight wound, and all I could say is in the last couple of weeks since we freed them up, they're way more free.
Right.
They're out there playing, and I finally see my oldest just being a child again. I can't even describe it. So we haven't fully gone into it, and you know, she's choosing the stuff that she wants to learn, and we haven't done that much yet. However, I think that we're all really smart, and we're just intelligent. And I think that when she makes the decision to, because you're giving them the choice, you're not using threats, force, and coercion, and that's kind of hard to implement when you have to unlearn everything that your parents taught you, and you're trying to implement it in your life, and it's not easy. Like trying not to use threats, force, and coercion, because it just doesn't work. It does the opposite effect. Like we've all felt threats, force, and coercion around us, and so we're trying not to do those things and let them kind of grow like a flower on their own and see what comes out of it, but guiding them with natural law principles and teach them a different morality, which is something I don't see anyone doing, not personally around us, right? So, you know, we'll see. Like our kids will have a better chance. You know, they're not going to be the most intelligent people in the world, like left brain intelligence, but intellectual. Intellectual, but they will be intelligent. So 100%. Our focus is morality and kindness. You know, even if they're not successful or whatever, at least that they're not going to, you know, put slavery on the world or affect someone else.
Right.
So, and I think that's the goal. So, yeah, non-aggression principles. So, like, I don't believe that they're going to choose that path. There's no way they can. They've seen us. I've listened to Mark Passio 10 times on each podcast.
Me too.
I've listened to you guys, and I've listened to a lot of people, and so our kids just naturally pick up the way we speak and the way that we act and the way that you are and the things that you do. Like it's really about, like, you know, they kind of follow you. So
100%.
You know, I don't think there's going to be a problem with that aspect.
Right.
So
no, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that your 9-year-old wants to do a podcast and like I was saying, on an important topic like that, you guys are doing something right. I mean, I know a few of my friends have children around that age, and they're not talking about doing it. And if they are talking about doing a podcast, it's about gaming or something. You know, it's about gaming and something like that. And that's something that I'm glad that you kind of I brought this up and we were talking about it. I see a lot of parents, and I've talked about this in other interviews with Will Keller and stuff like that. What are you guys' thoughts? I see a lot of parents letting technology raise their kids. And what I mean by that is I'm seeing children younger and younger with a phone in their hand, a tablet in their hand, stuck to a computer screen, a TV screen. And what I mean is that the parents aren't raising the kids, the technology is. And I've seen parents, when their children's phone gets taken away or their tablet, they lose their mind. the kids have a mental breakdown. It's bad, and I've seen this a lot of times. What are your guys? I know what you guys are going to say, but I got. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Letting your children, this technology, raise their children. Raise your children.
We're not perfect, so I think like with our first two kids together, at some point we got rid of TV for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like was when I was good. I got rid of all my addictions in my life. I got rid of almost anything you could think of, masturbation and whatever it is. I conquered it, and I had control over it. But then I was going somewhere, and I didn't like being so perfect. And but the point is that we didn't watch TV. Like it took 1 week for them to get over it, and after a week they never asked for it again. And we did puzzles and played outside and stuff like that. A lot of tragic things have happened in my life. My brother, sister, mom, daughter died, all separate times, tragic super deaths. And so we went through these crazy times. And so the TV was a tool at that times when family was grieving for a week, and, we just, and there was nothing else we could do. Like TV was actually watched our kids. Like we weren't conscious. We were in fear, and death occurred, and so we went back to TV. So, but it's about like allowing them, like TV is MK Ultra. I mean, it's just straight programming.
Yep.
If you are going to choose that path, you've got to have some kind of screen time. I think everything in moderation. I don't think that you should take anything away from it. Yeah, everything comes in moderation, and so
that's what
you try to moderate
what
they're using. Yeah, and so you just moderate the time they have. You may even have to moderate the games they play in, or the shows that they're watching, depending on how bad the programming is.
Right.
And some shows when we watch it. Go ahead, Rick.
Okay, sorry. No, it's just a little bit of lag, but that's okay. I didn't mean to cut you guys off, but I just agree with you guys that it's moderation. I don't think that you should never let your children watch TV or play a game or anything like that. That's usually what people twist my words. And when I say that, they're like, oh, so you don't want kids playing games. You don't want them watching any movies. I'm like, I didn't say that. What I'm talking about is I've seen parents that from the time their kid is up till they go to bed, they've got a tablet in their hand, and that's all they do. They're not outside playing, and they're not outside exploring. And I think that's so important. And that's why I love what you guys are doing with the homeschooling and letting your children find whatever interests them, right? You guys let them find their interest. You encourage it. And that's amazing. And that's what I think is missing with children now. I don't see kids out. When I was growing up, and I'm sure when you guys were growing up, we were always outside. I mean, I never was hardly in the house. We were outside playing. We were exploring the world. We were doing all these things with our friends and learning socializing and stuff like that. And now I don't see that anymore. It seems that you barely see children outside. They're all in their house on a computer or something. And I just think that that's not, we're going to see I keep saying we're going to see the downside to this as they get older. There's going to be a blowback to this. There has to be.
Also, the problem is that the radiation from the internet, like people are having tablets in their hands,
right?
And it's going to cause it. It's just like ultrasound. It's the same exact. It's non-ionizing radiation.
Mm-hmm.
It's causing brain damage. It's causing fertility issues, and we're having our kids with these tablets right next to them. There's kids coming out with it's young people getting dementia,
mm-hmm.
basically, from just holding their phones next to their heads for a certain amount of time. I mean, it's really dangerous. And I don't think that the majority of parents are understanding the implications that we're going to have in 1-2 generations.
Right.
Not even that far. I mean, kids' brains accept radiation 10 times more than adult brains. And so the studies were done on adult brains for cell phones. Mm-hmm. And we're giving people brain tumors after 10 years of use, or even before that. So if it's 10 times worse for kids, I mean, how fast is it going to cause damage to them?
Oh, for sure. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no one's talking about that aspect. So if our kids do play on phones or anything, we don't have Wi-Fi in the house, but we do have phones. Like right now, we're using a phone for our Wi-Fi connection. And so right here, we're being Wi-Fi. Our kids know, even our 3-year-old, if he plays a game on our phone, which he's 3 and shouldn't, but we allow him, he turns the AirPod on. Yep. And I'm being anal, so I even check every single time, and he has it on. I just have to check. Like I have to make sure. And so airplane mode's on when they're using it. You know, and they're smart enough to know that. And so it's really important to me that if they are going to use that kind of stuff, to know, you know, we have certain guidelines and certain what we call rules, even because you know, this stuff's either a tool or a weapon. So
exactly, that's what I try to tell people too, right? Like technology, it's amazing because it's allowing us to talk. We're using technology to do this interview, so it has its pluses. And I know, like you, I watch a lot of documentaries and presentations, listen to a lot of different people, so it has a good point. But you know, a lot of people are they're not taking advantage of how much information they have at their fingertips to learn about what's going on in the world. They're too busy filling their mind with mindless stuff, you know, and I think that's such a shame that people aren't realizing how much information that they can learn if they start looking into these things. And I just think a lot of people are just happy not looking into. They just don't seem interested. I try to get people to look at a lot of the stuff that we look into, and they have every excuse not to. I think, and it's really sad when I think about it, and it gets me angry too. I mean, after that point.
I've never woken anyone up besides, and I've never personally woken anyone up. You can't wake anyone up, but you can give them knowledge, and if they read it. But I've never actually woken someone up, or even I've bought so many books for people, like The Greatest Superstition or The End All Evil, or you know, these books, and people won't read them, and if they do, they didn't get it or understand it. Jen, my wife, is the only one. And I kind of gave her an ultimatum about 5 years ago. I was meditating. I saw the future in a sense. I was imagining what it would be like. And I knew truth, and no one around me knew it. No friends, only people on the internet that I've never physically met. And I told her, I was like, I don't see us being together if you don't like look at these things and see what I see. Like, and it was kind of like, you call it whatever you want, but I saw what was going to happen if we weren't both on the same page.
Right.
You know, if you didn't believe in vaccines, organic food, if you didn't believe government is slavery, if you didn't see these things, like our family wasn't going to be cohesive. And we're actually in a group. We've been in a group for 1.5 years, natural law group. And a lot of the people in the group actually lost their wives, you know, like, you know, most of our group, they broke up in this last year, and they've all moved, and, you know, their kids are separate. And it's because the people, they couldn't see eye to eye. And I'm very fortunate that Jen and us are on the same page. That's so important to know the difference between right and wrong, to know that the truth does exist, first of all, because a lot of people don't even know that.
Exactly.
And that there is a right and a wrong, and that morality is real, and that we're both on the same page. And that's like it's a real blessing. Even if I can't afford to eat, I don't even care about all that stuff. Like, I'm with someone that knows that, like, morality exists, truth exists, and we're on the same page, and it's just,
that's more important. That's more important than anything. And I agree with you. I've lost a few friends along this journey, and I have a few family members even that do not get at all what I'm talking about. It's like you said, in that group that you're in, that you see people breaking up, and I've told people that on the air before. I've lost friends that just they're not at the same level, and you can't. And I'm glad that you said that you haven't woke anyone up, because I don't think I've ever woke anyone up either. I think that you have to find this. You have to be willing to seek out this information, and you can't just cram it down people's throats. And I kind of did that when I first started doing this. I had all this information, and I was trying to tell people, like my friends and family, and I was hammering it in them. You know, and it was like trying to put a peg into a round hole. It wasn't working. And all I did was getting fights in that. And then I realized through trial and error that you have to kind of assess where people's consciousness is at when you meet them. Like, you know, if you're here and, you know, you're up here and they're way down here, they're not going to get it. You got to so I call it planting seeds, which is I'll give them a little bit of information all the time when I see them. And I hope that someday it's going to make them think and want to look into things. And maybe it'll sprout a day later, maybe 10 years later. I don't know. But it's, yeah, like, I mean, it's really, when you start talking about these topics and you really start questioning people's morality and their decisions, you lose friends. Very good. Like, I've lost a few, and you just said, you've met people in groups that have, and there is that blowback for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get it.
Sad.
It really is. But I want, before I know you guys have your children, so I don't want to keep you too long. I just really enjoyed this conversation, but I wanted to ask, especially Jen, because and you, Rob, because you're part of this whole topic too. For women out there that are thinking of having children and they don't want to go through the hospital way, and they want to go the natural way, what are some of the what are the things that they can do? Like, I've heard of water birth. I've heard of that was really popular for a while. Women, and I think it may still be, that they do a whole thing where they give birth in a water net. What are some of the things that women can look into to do it at home, or where should they start if they are listening to this and they don't want to do it through a hospital?
I'm a big advocate for unassisted birth. And so I would start by meeting other women who have done unassisted birthing, working through your fears. There's a really good podcast called the Indie Birth Podcast, and they go through everything through hemorrhaging. They go through breech birth, which is totally possible to even do an unassisted birth if your baby's breech. They go through the cord being wrapped around the baby's neck, meconium. I mean, they're just a huge resource, because I think that that's the biggest thing that holds women back from doing this on their own is fear. And so if you're able to break through all of those fears, then you can feel comfortable in doing it on your own. There was a study that was done, because nature gives birth on their own all the time. I mean, there's no one watching nature do it. They did a study on cats, and when they started watching the cats giving birth, all these complications started coming up. And I think that's it's a very eye-opening study. You have these people around you, and especially if they're in a fear-based mindset, that's going to affect you. And so it's really, and plus you can't be in fear and love at the same time. So if you can dispel all those fears, it's really doing your own research. You can't really just listen to anyone. You have to know for yourself and feel comfortable in doing it. It's the most empowering thing that I've ever experienced in my life. And I do think that it really helps the bonding process as well. Yeah.
I totally.
Well, everything they do.
Go ahead, Rob.
Everything they do breaks that bond. So all the drugs, blocking the oxytocin, the love hormone, and C-sections, they're not going through the vaginal birth and coming out with all the stuff on their body that protects them from birth. They put eye goop in your eyes so you can't see your mom when you're born. They cut off your penis, which is the most, sexually traumatic thing that you can happen for males at birth. They do all these things at the hospital that just completely cause brain damage or separation from your mom, which is what they're really trying to do, is separate you from your mom and have traumatic issues. And you could look around, and if people pay attention, you could see that there's something definitely wrong in this world, and it starts at birth.
Right.
So that's why our focus is birth. So
that's amazing, right? And I didn't know that. So they put drops in the eyes at birth. So what is the drops? What is the reason for the eye drops?
It's an ointment, and it's for moms with sexually transmitted diseases, which is interesting because even though you're tested in pregnancy for these, they still just give it to every baby.
So even if you don't have it, they still give it to you.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
You can decline all these things. You can always decline all these things, but most people
Don't
just
do it.
follow orders, believe in authority, and do all of them anyways.
Right.
So,
And then they also keep you in that state of fear, which I'm glad you guys brought up, right? Because that definitely, when I look around the world now, they've always got people in this state of fear. And it's like Jen said, if you're in that state of fear, you're not in conscious thinking, right? You're in that if you're in fear, you're in a reactive state. And there's no real thinking going on. There's no higher conscious thinking going on when you're in that fear state. And they always, through the media, through all of this, the social engineering, they keep us in that fear state. And it's great that you guys bring that up, because I don't think people think about the fear state of birth. When that's got to be a scary thing, going into a hospital. I would be petrified if I was a woman. I just know me. If I had to go into a hospital pregnant and then they started putting needles in me and they got lights on me and they got people around me, you're already in that state of fear. And to think that that's not affecting your baby and the mother is just not being honest.
yeah, fear. I agree with that. And fear is just simply a lack of knowledge. That's all it is. So.
Yeah. So taking in knowledge is so important. Janice Barcelo is a really great. She goes through everything that the hospitals do that is wrong. She writes a book called The Birth Trauma and the Dark Side of
Prenatal.
of modern medicine.
Okay.
And it's a really hard read, because you realize all the a wrong is causing harm, and so you realize all of the decisions that you chose to make that actually caused harm. But if you can get through that process and realize that you can always make a different choice or help other people to see like what's going on in the world, and then my solution is having an unassisted birth and joining groups. The groups on Facebook are really good for me. Not everyone has it 100% right, but you could take what you want and leave the rest, and you just keep grabbing knowledge.
I agree, and what I'm going to ask
do your
you
own
guys,
research.
do your own research, 100%, Rob. And I'm going to ask you guys, if after this, if you guys can on Messenger just send me any books that you guys recommend, because I want to put them in the description. So just the name of the book and the author, and any links to any websites, podcasts, anything that you guys will think help people with this topic, I will put in the description for everybody, because I do think it's important, and I hope people that are looking into this will look into this information that you provide, and like with these books and stuff, and I hope they get them and start looking into this. So any recommendation you guys have, just send me a message with them, and I'll make sure they get in the description so people can actually check these out for themselves. So anything that you think will help.
Definitely.
That would be great. Yeah. Because the more I have so many, like, I love talking to you guys, because I find it really interesting. I find it disturbing too, of what's going on with the whole birthing process. And the more that like I said, I've learned through talking to you guys in your presentation, and I'll make sure I put a link in the description too for your presentation for F.U.N.L, for the Freedom Under Natural Law. Definitely hope people will check that out. I recommend that people do. It's very interesting. And I was just saying, I'm not a parent myself, and I still found it interesting, because our kids are what's coming up behind us, right? And if we want them to have the best start and everything and have all the advantages, and if the system is stopping that right from the start, we have to educate people on this, what's going on.
I think that's the most important thing. I mean, autism is like, it used to be 1 in 10,000, and now it's like 1 in 25. So people need to look like, you want true freedom and you want to have a future. Well, our kids are our future.
Yep.
They're the whole future. And so we have to make sure that we know what we're doing when we have kids.
Right.
So
the parents need to educate themselves, as you said, and start learning about natural law, learning about objective morality. So the parent, there's onus on the parent to learn these things so they can teach the children, and the parents have to start looking into what they're doing during this birthing process and in these hospitals, and that looking into better ways. And with the schooling system, I think you guys are doing it all right, man. I mean, like you said, you weren't doing it perfect from the start, but you're learning and you're adapting, and I think that's amazing. I really do. I commend you guys so much.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Rick. I think it all boils down to personal responsibility too. Like that's really the thing that's really lacking in our world. we just give it away almost all the time.
Everything.
Yeah.
Whether it's cutting your grass, your teeth to the dentist, or your medical to the doctor. I mean, you name it, you give away your responsibility every day. So yeah.
And they do it willingly, Rob. That's the scary part. People are all too willing to give up everything, right? Just for that bit of security, or to have somebody else do it. And it takes work, as you guys said, and it's hard work. I mean, you guys said that too. And I just think that people are, like you said, I think you guys said it perfect. And Jen, you said it perfect, that people are just giving away their responsibility. And I mean, that's the problem, is that we just have people that are not looking into these issues, and they're kind of just, and it just boggles my brain when I hear people think that the world's in a great place. I talk to people that think everything's fine. And I'm just like, I don't know what world they're looking at, but I'm just like, I don't know. It's not fine to me. I mean, we're in such bad slavery here, and some people just can't see it. They can't.
And our kids are enslaved the most.
Yes, 100%, 100%. And I think that's great that you guys are doing the homeschooling thing and teaching them. And you guys are teaching them about all of these topics that they're not teaching them in school, because you can bet your ass they're not teaching them about. They're not teaching them about rights. They're not teaching them objective morality. They're not teaching them truth. Any of these topics, they're the opposite. So I think that's great that you guys are doing that and letting your children find what they're interested in and encouraging them to do that. That's what learning happens. Get them out in the world and experience things and encourage what they want to learn. I think you're going to have amazing kids when they get older. I really do.
I think so too, Rick.
Yep.
I do.
Yep. So that's amazing, guys. I mean, like I said, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know you, like I said, you have children up and that, so I don't want to keep you too long, but definitely please send me any links, like I said, any books that you want me to put in the description. You guys are welcome to come back anytime. I would love to have you back on, maybe in a month or so, and we can continue this, talk about any other topics that you guys want to talk about. I'm open to talk about anything that you guys think is important with this topic.
Thanks for having us, Rick.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We appreciate you.
Oh,
we like the work you're doing, for sure, man.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you guys too. So, like I said, I'll let you guys go, and I will definitely keep in touch with yous. And like I said, I'll have yous back on probably in a month or so. We'll continue this and I'll probably have a ton more questions for you by then. So, definitely, I'll have yous back on.
Okay.
All right.
All right, Rick. Have a good night, man.
You too, guys, and I'll stay in. Take care, and I'll definitely keep in touch. Thank you so much, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Well, there we have it. Oh, I tell you what, an important, holy geez, spit that word out, topic here to talk about. And what two great people that are being just 100% honest with everything. And I think that is amazing, the work that they're doing. And as I was saying during the interview, I truly do admire how they are doing it. They're being 100% honest with it and how difficult this is. It's not an easy path, and they're doing it, and they're learning as they go. And I mean, what more can you ask for in that? They're doing it, raising their children, teaching them, and learning the knowledge that they're taking in, the knowledge that they need. And that is more than a lot of people do. I mean, most parents are just so willing to put their, to put their children in schooling and into the system. I get why a lot do in a way, because as I said, the system is rigged that way. They have both parents need to work, and they barely pay the bills, keep food on the table, or any of the, it's just such a tough thing. And they stack the deck against you right from the start, right? And then, as I was saying during the interview, they designed it this way to break up the family and to keep parents away from their children. I've known this for years. I've been saying this, that I've seen that. And as I was saying, when I was growing up, they had kindergarten, and then they had, well, actually, I was thinking, now that I think about it, they had kindergarten, senior kindergarten, and then you went into public school and then high school, and, so on and so on. And now, like I was saying during the interview, I hear there's pre-kindergarten, and then you got parents that are, they only have a certain amount of time for maternity leave, and then they have to basically hand their child over to daycare. so they can get back to work, because as I was saying, they got bills to pay, right? They got food to put on the table. So who's raising your children? Maybe you have a couple hours in the morning with them, and at best a couple hours at night. And the weekends that you're off, if you do have a weekend off, or your family does, you're trying to probably keep up with the house cleaning and just living and groceries and all of that. So you're not getting that quality time where the bonding happens. And so I just think that, this is something that people have to start looking into and realizing that you owe this to your children, to get them out of this system and to raise them at home. And and I like the way that Jen and Rob said that you don't have to set it up like a classroom. I imagine a lot of parents at first make that mistake. They have to take the classroom and bring it into their house and do it the exact same way, which anyone should know that that's not the way that you learn. You cannot cram information in a child's head for 8 hours a day every day and expect them to retain any of it. Your brain, if you look at it, the brain, it just doesn't work that way. So the fact that you have to bring your children home and teach them and let the world be their teacher, and let them find their interest. Everybody's different. We're all different. We all have different talents, different interests. And so the sooner I think that you let children start exploring the world, finding what they're passionate about, and then really teaching them that, they're going to be learning a lot as they learn about what they're passionate about, and just interacting with other people and that, and in society, and out and learning about nature and stuff. I think the world should be the classroom, not sitting in a cubicle for 8 hours a day trying to hammer all this information in. And I think that's amazing that their 9-year-old wants to do a podcast and do it about, the ocean and the fish in it and the problems going on with it. That, for a 9-year-old, that's incredible to me. Such an important topic. And they're already passionate about that and wanting to do that and go and put their voice out there and start making a difference and bringing people information like that. That's more than most adults do. A lot of people out there, they take in this information and they got a pretty good idea what's going on, but then they stop there and they don't complete the process. They bring in they take in the information, they process it, but they don't finish it. They just keep taking it in, but you have to start putting your voice out there like we're all doing. And that's how the difference is made. And I just think that I had to get them on the radio show for sure. We had an amazing 2-hour interview. You can definitely find it on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And I did it, I think, 3 weeks ago. And I also had Will Keller on with them for the second hour as a special guest. So it was an amazing interview with 3 amazing people. And I really do recommend. I'm going to put a link, as I said, for the F.U.N.L conference in the description. And I'll put all the anything that Jen and Rob recommend if you're looking into having a birth, not in the hospital and doing it at home. Any information that they give me, I will put that in the description too, and I hope you guys check that out and start looking into that and educating yourself and realizing there is another way, a better way, a more natural way for sure, and get out of that fear. So I hope that you guys will look into those links, and I hope you guys will click on the link to the F.U.N.L conference. All the presentations for the F.U.N.L conference were amazing, and so much great information in those presentations. And definitely check out Rob and Jen's on this topic, because they really go into a lot of detail and a lot of they show a lot of proof and different studies, and it was really fascinating to me. And I didn't realize that I know that they started working indoctrinating the children into the system at a very young age with the schooling system, but I never really thought about the birthing process and what's going on with that, and how they are, even at that stage, they're starting to put a wedge between the parents and the child. And then, like they were saying, with these ultrasounds and all of these different drugs that they're doing during the birthing process, and all, it's just, when you start diving into it, it's really disturbing. And I think it's something that people should talk about a little bit more and look into a little bit more, especially if you're looking to have a child. These are very important topics. I think that it's a topic that needs to be talked about. So I'm definitely going to have them back on maybe in a month or so and have a great list of questions for them and continue this conversation, because I find it really fascinating when you start looking into it. And it all started with their presentation. So I hope you guys check it out. It's really interesting. And you'll see that they are targeting our children in the womb. Like, they're not waiting till they're even born. They've got this right down to where they are attacking the mother and the family unit and all of it right from the start. And like, as they were saying, it's with the fear, and that's what they rely on, is to keep people in that state of fear. Because I say it all the time, if you're in that state of fear all the time, you can't be, and as Jen said, you can't be in that state of love. If you're in that state of fear, how are you supposed to feel both of those at the same time? And you're in that state of, you're not being conscious and thinking clearly when you're in that state of fear. You're in that kind of fight or flight mode, and in that fear mode. And that's where they keep you. As anyone knows, if you just turn on any social media, it's one fear after another. They have a fear, play that one for a while, and they got one right in the chamber ready to come right behind that one. And when that one plays out, don't worry, they got another one. They got another one coming. They'll have that lined up for you. And then fear. And anything but let people start looking, or have the time to look into these topics like natural law, objective morality, principles, all of these things. So it's great that they said, too, in the interview, what a great interview, that the parents, it's on the parents to start teaching their children about these things, too. So the parents have to do some work, too, and start learning about all of these things and looking into these topics and learning about natural law and all of the things I just mentioned, so they can teach it to their children. And if they're not, their child's already, going to have a hard time if the parents aren't teaching them the right things. That's where it starts. The parents have to learn these things, educate themselves, align themselves to it. Take your life and your behavior and align it to natural law and the things that we're talking about, and then teach it to your children. And it's just not happening. And I just hate to see what's going to be happening down the road. In 5 or 10 years, or however long it takes, we're going to start seeing this get worse and worse, I think. So just a great topic. It's an important topic, I think, and one I'm going to continue to bring them on to talk about, and other people. I just think that conscious parenting is something that has to be talked about. And I think that parents have to start realizing to get their kids out of the school system. They really need to do that. And I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm glad Rob talked about that, and so did Jed, that it's not an easy path. And there is sacrifices to be made. And are you willing to make those sacrifices for your children? Get them out of the system and teach them the right things, and let the world be their teacher, and realize that, you don't own your kids. You're their steward, and you're supposed to give them the best possible guidance and wisdom and knowledge that you possibly can, to give them a great start, a great life and a great start in life. And I just think that's so important. It's just something that's not being done. And as I said, I know it's by design. They've designed the system. And as we said, you're never going to beat this system, because the elites want this system. They love it. It's getting exactly done what they want done. And people just seem to be going along with it. And it's just crazy. I don't know. As I was saying during the interview, I talked to some people, and they love the world the way it is, and that's just unfathomable to me. I don't get what they see, but I'm glad I don't, actually. So, but that's enough rambling here. Sorry, guys, I tend to talk a lot at the beginning and most of the time at the end, but I just like to give you guys my thoughts on these things and these topics. So I thank you guys for listening to this interview, and please definitely check out Jen and Rob's lecture at the F.U.N.L. I'll leave a link in the description, and any of the information that's in the description if you're looking into not giving birth in a hospital and looking into deeper into these topics. I think it's super important. So thanks, guys, for joining. If you enjoyed this interview, please hit the like, subscribe. Should say that a little bit more. Don't forget, you can also find me, as I tell you, is at the end of every interview, at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. I'm on every Saturday night for the Decompression Hour. It's my fun show that I do Saturday nights from 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. and I'm in Studio B. And that's just my fun show where I talk about music and the odd movie if I do watch one. And music is my center, so it's something I really enjoy. I listen to music every day, very important to me. So I love to talk about it for that 1 hour. I can't be doing research all the time and hitting all the, you have to decompress. That's why I call it the decompression hour. You have to pull away from this every once in a while and do stuff that you enjoy. I'm fully for that. You go out and have fun every once in a while, guys, for sure. Or listen to music, art, whatever you enjoy doing, you have to do that to find your center. For me, it's music and art. For me, 100%. And my more serious show, you can find me. That's Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the same. And that's on Monday nights from 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Studio A. And I have great guests on there talking about all the same topics that we talk about here. And there's a lot of amazing hosts at Revolution Radio. So definitely go and check it out. And it's pretty much 24/7 that you're getting amazing content there, especially if you like the radio style. I grew up with radio, so I love it. I love that whole format, just being able to put on a headset, clean around the house, do whatever, sit outside and listen to a great show. And they cover there are a lot of hosts there that are covering amazing, important topics that you can't talk about on other platforms. They just won't allow it. The censorship is worse than it is ever now, has been before, and they pull these interviews down quicker than they go up, basically. So definitely check it out if you do enjoy the radio format and listening to great content. I definitely think you guys will find some hosts there really worth listening to and really interesting topics. So hopefully you'll check me out too. Like I said, Saturday night for my decompression hour and Monday nights for my Crypt Ricks I've been thinking and my main show. So, and as I just want to say at the end again, guys, thank you so much. I really enjoy doing these interviews. I super appreciate every one of you that listen. Give me your feedback, leave comments, let me know what you think of the interviews. If you have anybody that you would like me to interview on these topics, any suggestions, I'm not hard to get a hold of. Send me an email, binthinkingpodcast@gmail.com. And just send me an email. Let me know if there's a guest you want me to bring on so we can talk about these topics. And I'd be more than happy to make that try to happen. I'm going to try to do another. I want to get back to I was doing album reviews, talking about some of the albums that influenced my music choices over the years. And so far I've done 2. I've done one on Kiss, and I've done one for Meatloaf when he passed away because, Kiss was big in my life, and Meatloaf I've been a fan of Meatloaf too, and so I thought that would be the 2 ones. I think the next one I'm going to probably do will be Alice Cooper, and the album I'm not going to tell you the album, but there was an album, first Alice Cooper album I think I ever listened to, and I still listen to it pretty much every week. I listen to the full album. I'm a fan of the full album. It's one of my favorites. So I am going to get back to doing that. And don't forget, I also have a live show now, every Saturday night from 9 p.m. till 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's probably going to go a little bit longer than that hour. A lot of people said the first show was a little quick, so maybe we'll make it an hour and a half. But I am doing that with my co-host Cass from Southern Truth. And we just sit back and we talk about these topics. We talk about natural law, freedom, objective morality, principles, conscious parenting, all of it. We cover all of it, and hopefully you guys will check that out. Like I said, it's live every Saturday night right here, and come and check it out, guys. Join the chat, and happy to read the chats and interact with you guys. I know Cass is. She's a great co-host. I have a great time chatting with her on the show and even off the air, so hopefully I'll see you guys there. And I just figured I'm not just starting with the live stream thing, so be a little patient with me, guys. The next one will be my second one that we've done. So we did our first show last week. It went really great. Had a great time, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Check it out if you haven't. So now that I've talked your guys' ear off for the last 20 minutes, I'll let you guys go. Take care, guys. Remember, take care of each other and start educating yourself and getting yourself familiar with and learning about these topics, natural laws I keep talking about, and educating yourself and doing the great work. I'll talk to you guys soon. I'll have great interviews lined up for you, and I'll see you soon. Take care, guys. Peace.
Are you interested in the paranormal? Murder mysteries, cryptocurrency, and thought-provoking interviews? Then check out Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking on YouTube, or every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Studio A at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Welcome to the Crypt.